All right, everybody, it's the start of our show. Now, my next guest is a 3-time MAC Award winner for Best Comic in New York City. He works at The Late Show with David Letterman. Please welcome fellow Emerson alum, Eddie Brill. Welcome, Eddie. Thank you for coming. My pleasure. Yay!
Thanks, guys.
Now, Eddie, I want to first say welcome back to Arlington. I know
Yay.
that you've been here before, and you said, when were you here?
In the 70s. I went to college, and there was a guy named Rick Keller who was one of my best friends, and he lived in Arlington. and then I learned all about the War of Arlington and Concord and all that other kind of stuff. But we used to come here for lunch.
Oh,
and
well,
so it's been a long time.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
And we want to get right into your story now.
Okay.
I know that when you were in high school, you lost your stepfather.
Yes.
And this changed the direction of your life. What was happening there?
I was a really, I'm still a nerd, but I was a real, math and science guy. And I thought that was really great. And I was going to go to MIT and study electrical engineering or something like that with that kind of thing. And then, but I also did some things on the side that I wrote for the local paper, and I announced football games and stuff like that. The Dolphins, I was living in Hollywood, Florida at the time. And then my stepfather died. He was only 37. And I said, you know what? Life's too short, and I better do what I love every day. And so I started doing more creative things. And my uncle taught at UMass Amherst. And I said, where can I go to school and study broadcast journalism? He said, well, Emerson College. So I went there. And then the first week I was at Emerson, I met all my best friends still to this day. And we formed a comedy group. And all of a sudden, I was a comedian. I never dreamt I would be. I loved comedians. I mean, George Carlin was my hero. I saw him on television. I was like, oh, my God. I think just like that guy. And now I'm doing it for a living. It's ridiculous. It's so cool,
You were talking about that Emerson Comedy Workshop that you started with some friends. Who were they?
Well, Dennis Leary went to Emerson a year before we did. And him and 3 other people, they had formed a little comedy group. And it was very successful. So he went to the school and said, let's do a whole school-wide thing the next year. That was my freshman year. So they had a little meeting, with a bunch of people. And we set up a workshop, and it was wildly successful. All of a sudden, I'll never forget it. The first bit we did in 1977, January 27th, I'll never forget it. I went on stage, and I was in the first bit, and I got a laugh, and it felt so good to get that laugh, and I've been chasing it for the rest of my life, I'll never let it go, Yeah. It's true.
We had a guest this year, and I was lucky to meet him. He was a professor a long time at Emerson College. It was Rex Traylor.
Oh, yeah.
And Rex recently passed away. I know they're doing a service for him this month. And I wanted to ask you, did you know Rex Traylor?
Yeah, very well. There's a documentary about him that I was lucky to be in. He was one of the best teachers I ever had. But see, I didn't grow up in New England. I had never been to New England until I went to college here. So I didn't know Rex. I was living in New York as a little boy, and we had Sonny Fox. He was like the Rex Traylor guy of New York. So that was, but I never heard of him. I get to Boston, and the best teacher I have is this guy. And he was very funny and very smart and very caring up until his whole life. I went back to Emerson a couple years ago, and he was there, and it was the same guy. So very sad when he passed away, because he was just one of those guys that I know, like yourself, you probably grew up with him and said, oh, there's Rex Traylor. But to me, he was that guy, that teacher that you always loved. There was 2 of them at Emerson, Marcia Della Justina, my broadcast journalism teacher, and Rex Traylor. They were the best.
And I think that the documentary was Boomtown Gold.
Right.
And I was lucky enough, he invited me to go visit his class his last semester, and I went out and I visited the kids. It was great to see him after all those years still teaching, and his passion was still in it, and we're going to miss Rex Traylor.
Yeah, anyone who takes care of kids and does things for children, you know that they have a big heart, and that's why, that's what Rex Traylor was. He was that kind of guy.
He's definitely one of my heroes. When you left Emerson now, in 1984, you were in New York and you opened this club, the Paper Moon Comedy Club.
Right.
And so I wanted to ask you, how did that happen? How did that start?
Well, I graduated in '80, and it was kind of, I thought comedy was great, but we weren't making much money. We were working at the Ding Ho and the Crossroads Bar, and we were, at the end of the night, we all get $3 each, and we go to the Highline Deli, and we'd have breakfast, and we thought that was really fun. But then I graduated, and I didn't want to be one of those guys who came back to the college and lived off of that glory. So I went to New York, where my best friends from Emerson were, and decided to go in advertising and life for a living. and I and I made lousy money, and I couldn't sleep at night because that's what you do in advertising. And then and I missed comedy, because comedy, you tell the truth for a living, and it's turned out to be fantastic, you know, and it's great. So in 1984, an Emerson alumni, a friend of mine from school, was working at a restaurant in the NYU neighborhood and said they want to do comedy. I said, well, I haven't done it in 4 years. He said, no, just run it. And I ran it, and it became this huge, amazing comedy club. And I was able to bring a lot of Boston comics, like, you know, Jimmy Tingle and Kenny Rogerson and all the great, brilliant comics from Boston to New York, where in New York comedy clubs, there was such a clique.
Yeah.
So my comedy club, I was bringing people from San Francisco and Boston, LA, Chicago, who had never got the chance to work in New York.
You know, you mentioned Emerson and the connections you made, and I do have to mention this real quick. My jib operator is Tom Giannini. We went to Emerson together, and that's where we met. He comes every week, and he works on the show for free. Thank you, Tommy Giannini.
Hey, Tommy.
You became the warm-up comic for The Late Show with David Letterman, and I wanted to ask you, how did that happen?
You know, it's who you know in the business. That's why I got on this show. You know, that's the way it is. It is. It is. Well, you know, it's true. And I remember I was the MC the first time Louis C.K. ever did stand-up. Well, he was a writer at the Letterman show, and there was another guy from Massachusetts named Bill Sheft, who's still working at the show, and the two of them recommended me for the warm-up. So I had a 6-week trial period, and here I am 16 years later, still working at this phenomenal show, you know. It's pretty great. I'm very lucky. I'm on stage every night at one of the greatest theaters in the history of television, and you know, there's where Elvis Presley stood, there the Beatles stood,
yeah, that's awesome.
Letterman, you know, and I'm happen to be on that same thing. It's great.
And now here in Arlington, we say this is where Eddie Brill sat.
Ah. I'm just happy to be in the seat that Lenny Clark sat in. Yeah.
Oh, now you got me going.
My good buddy.
You were the creative director for the Great American Comedy Festival. Now, I know what that is, but there are a lot of people that watch our show overseas who will not know what that is, so please let them know.
Well, you know, it's hard. You know, you get older and you just want your legends their name to stay alive. So Johnny Carson, you know, was my hero and was Letterman's hero in most comics. What he did for comedy, very few people, like Steve Allen did it and Jack Parr and before him, but Johnny was really the guy who was great to stand-up comics. So I don't want people to forget who Johnny Carson is. So in his hometown of Norfolk, Nebraska, which he loved, he did a documentary about it, and they're the nicest people in the world. Johnny was so good to his community. He has a big cancer foundation there, and also he built a 1,200-seat theater, state-of-the-art theater. So once a year, this will be the 6th year, I bring in the best comics from America, some of the legendary figures in our business, and young up-and-coming comics, and we teach improv to children, and we bring in magicians, because Johnny was a magician, and we keep Johnny's name alive every year. So it's in the middle of June. It's in Norfolk, Nebraska. You have to fly to Omaha and then drive 2 hours, and then out of the corn comes this amazing theater, and it's like, oh my God, you know. But
and I know I mentioned this to you before, that this past October was the 50th anniversary of Johnny Carson taking over The Tonight Show. How about that?
Yeah, it's pretty great. And I remember the first year we did the festival, some of the Boston guys came, and Dan Bolger was one of them, and Shane Moss, and all these guys.
Arlington resident Joe Wong went.
Yeah,
he's
Joe
from our
Wong,
town.
to me, you know, I booked the Letterman show for 11 years as the booking of the comics, and he was one of my prize finds. You know, as a booker, you have to. It's really fun when you can find an unknown and bring them to prominence. And Joe Wong was one of my biggest shining moments in that one. But we would bring them, and these guys would say, "I didn't know who Johnny was." You know, like they were young kids, and now they do, and hopefully that will keep on. That's what you want to do.
I love how you are connected to Johnny Carson, Ed Sullivan, and David Letterman. How about this, everybody? Unbelievable.
Proud. Yeah.
It's really an honor to have you here, Eddie. I know you've been on more than 100 different television shows, and I wanted to ask you, what was your most exciting one to do?
Well, you know, I've done so many. The Letterman show is so cool because, you know, it was my dream to do it. I would have loved to have done the Tonight Show, but I wasn't ready at that time. But you know, one time there was a British TV show, the Jonathan Ross Show, and it was like the Letterman show of England. And they came to New York to do live tapings for a week. And Stephen Wright, who I went to college with, he recommended me to these people. So I got on the show. And now and they filmed it at the Ed Sullivan Theater where Letterman was, but Letterman wasn't there yet. So I'd never been to that theater at all. And I got to perform with Lily Tomlin, who's one of my heroes in show business. So I was so excited. I was nervous to meet her. But what happened was I was too nervous. I wanted to focus on my set because it's going live to England. So if you screw up, there's no editing. You're doing it live. So I did, and I had a very good set. I felt really good. When I was done, Lily Tomlin was on the side of the stage and gave me a big hug and said, "You are great," and we kept in touch ever since. But to me, to have your hero, I got chills now, but she was that person, so to me, I think that was one of the coolest TV experiences I ever had because it was live and Lily Tomlin liked it,
That's awesome. I know my mom made a noise. She loves Lily Tomlin.
Oh, God,
one of my wife's favorite shows of all times is Dr. Katz. It is a cartoon that was produced out of Boston, and you were on the show. Yes, in Watertown.
Yes.
And what was your character on the show? You played yourself?
Myself. I did 2 episodes, actually. I did the first episode that got on the air. Me and Mark Maron split an episode. And it was so cool because, I was a little boy and cartoon fan, and then I'm a cartoon. How cool is that? That is one of the cool moments of your life. And then I went back and filmed another one, but unfortunately the show didn't get picked up the year. But it's still one of the crowning moments of my life when I saw me as a cartoon and my voice coming out on the television in a cartoon character. It's like, whoa.
It is really a great show, and I know that he's doing another show now online, on the internet. I'm not sure, but if you look for Jonathan Katz, you'll find it.
Yeah, he was always the funniest comic, one of the greatest guys, and just original and unique. And anything he would do, you would want to be part of it. I went to Europe to do a big comedy festival in England, and I took Don Gavin and Jonathan Katz because they were the 2 of the greatest comics on the planet. So I looked like a hero because I brought these 2 brilliant comics to England. And they go, "Wow, well, you'll help us every year." And then I got to be able to book that festival, the Americans at the festival every year.
I wanted to mention this. You worked a Comics Come Home. It was the Dennis Leary. He's done it for years now, but you did it in year 2, and it was at the Orpheum Theater, and I was working. It was one of my first jobs as a cable puller, but I won't
What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, I ran around with the camera.
No, I know. Just kidding.
Yeah.
One guy goes, "Okay, I got what he was doing." You didn't get it. He's like,
"Hey,
what does that mean?"
It's the kid show.
Your dad's over here. My son's a cable puller. I knew it from his face.
Thank God I'm married. Okay. Anyway, I'll never forget it because I remember seeing the comedians and how you guys made me laugh. And you talked a lot about foreign language and inflection of words. What were you mentioning?
George Carlin also was my hero. I saw him on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and I said, "Oh my God, I think that's he thinks just like me, or I think like him, or whatever. He's too good." But he was such a hero, and he loved words, and I love words. So in those days, I played with words, and you said something French. That was a hockey bit. I'm the biggest hockey fan, or one of the biggest. That's why I was involved with Comics Come Home for years, because it was Cam Neely, and one of the greatest hockey players ever. The dumbest trades the Vancouver Canucks ever made was giving away Cam Neely to the Bruins. But it was great for Boston, and I loved Boston hockey. And it was just so great. So anyway, I had a bit about, a guy's name is Patrick Roy. I just haven't done it in so many years, and your name is Roy Pal or something like that. And Bernie Perron, and it's like, his name is Parent, but spelled Perron, and it's like I hit my head on the pavement, and it was all that kind of a thing, But I just like words, and I'm very fun for me wordplay.
You have now become an advocate for being a vegan. It has changed your life. Tell me why.
Well, it's interesting. First of all, you hear vegan and people think you're a freak. You know what I mean? Because it's always put down. You always have to follow the money to ever find out a story. And when my parents were children, they were told that milk and meat were important. There was a food pyramid that was made when they were kids, and who was in charge of the food pyramid was the Dairy and the Beef Association. And that's why. But now you find out in later life that dairy is not even a little bit good for you, that you can't absorb food, that it causes osteoporosis, that it's because it's pasteurized, there's no calcium left, it's only synthetic stuff in there. So now what I've learned over the, because I weighed close to 400 pounds, and I have a kid, and I want to be in, I love my kid, and he's a comedian like me, and I just want to have this life with him. And so I wanted, and friends of mine died, because they were just not taking care of themselves. So I learned, I went to this Hippocrates Health Institute in West Palm Beach, Florida, where they teach about nutrition. See, the problem is the American Medical Association, the people who go to school, they don't learn nutrition. They learn how to sell pharmaceuticals because there's so much money involved. And can you blame them? They want to make money. But it works against us. Pharmaceuticals work for us, but the key is to get off of them. Like diabetes, type 2 diabetes, 98, 99% of the people don't have to to have it. It's a lifestyle choice. You can get off it. If you're on pharmaceuticals, you will never get off of diabetes type 2. But if you go the nutrition route, 99% of the time you will stop it. So people don't know that because there's no money in health. There's only money in people getting sick. Cancer is a billion-dollar business. So it's an important thing. When people hear vegan, it's like, ah! But the fact is, meat is not bad for you. It's what's in the meat. You know, there's steroids and there's, you know, because meat will deteriorate. So what they do is they pump it up with all the stuff, and all that synthetic stuff doesn't work in our bodies. So I got this incredible education. I lost over 100 pounds. My hair's thick. My skin's better. The rosacea's gone. The apnea is gone. Now, you know, out of 1,000 people watching this show, 999 are going to go, ugh, because we're addicted to sugar, we're addicted to salt, and they're kind of pimps, you know, the industry. You know, if you eat processed food, if I eat processed food, which I won't ever again, it's a waste of a meal. And we need another meal when we're done. That's why we're all so heavy in this world, and that's why there's so much disease in this world. Well, if you don't want disease, if you're that one person out of the 1,000 who cares about their health, you know, check out the Hippocrates Health Institute. Check out, the reason why veganism works is because it's more like being a raw foodist. Eating food that has nutrients. Nutrients will prevent disease and in many cases reverse disease. Much better than chemo. Chemo works about 35% of the time. Nutrition works about 65% of the time. But there's more money in the world of, you know, people who are selling processed food, they don't want me to say this on television, but there's no reason to eat processed food, ever. It's better to eat nothing.
Well, so. I've read your posts, and you seem like you really believe in this, and you feel a lot more healthy.
I feel amazing. So. You know, I'm 54, and I have pictures of me when I was 40, and I look better now than I did when I was 40 because that's what happens. We put bad things in, and bad things happen. It's a very serious conversation. And again, people will freak out, and people put down vegans and say there's no research on this kind of stuff. But there's 60, 70 years of research, and it really works. If you have type 2 diabetes out there, and you really care about it, look into nutrition because you'll get rid of it completely and never have to have any pills. And that's the key, really. Pharmaceuticals work for a little bit, but then you have to wean yourself off of them. Okay, you won't see me again because some guy from the pharmaceutical company is going to like. But remember, before I was shot and killed, I told you the truth. Hi, we're from the Squib Company. You know.
Eddie?
Yes, my friend.
I got a favor to ask you.
The way you're saying it looks like it's a tough one.
Well, listen, you work for the Late Show with David Letterman, and you're good friends with him, and I figured maybe when you go back to New York, you could tell him about our show and maybe convince David Letterman to come to Arlington, Massachusetts. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I'll give it a whirl. I tell him whatever I do. You know, I do. He's a big comedy fan, and he was a comic himself, of course, and he's one of the funniest guys around. And I hang out with him on every show, and we go, "What did you do last week? What did you do last weekend?" And I tell him, you know, all the things that we do. So I'll tell him that, you know, he has to make it when he makes his trip up here the next time, that he has to come to the Steve Katsos show.
How about that?
Yeah.
I got one more favor to ask you.
I can tell by the look on your face.
Now, you work for The Late Show with David Letterman, and those producers down there know you, and, well, we're big fans of Ed Sullivan, and I was wondering
if
maybe...
I can bring him back from the dead?
Not quite, but
okay.
I'd like to bring my staff down to New York, and I was hoping maybe you could show us around the theater.
You know what? It's hard to get tickets when you're on the staff there because there's only 492 seats, and a show that thousands and thousands of people want to see, and tourists come in town. But if you come and like after the show is over and there's nothing being taped, I can give you a little tour of the Ed Sullivan Theater.
How about it, everybody?
Yeah, I can. That I could do.
Well, listen,
it's not a hard thing.
I know time's up and you've got to go. We wanted to say thank you so much for coming here. It's great that you're connected, like I said, to Letterman, Carson, and Ed Sullivan.
It's such a, you know, it's a dream come true for me.
Honor for us to have you here.
Ladies
and gentlemen,
that.
Eddie Brill. Thank you, sir. All right. We'll be right back right after this.